Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Great to have you with us on the program. And back with us, as mentioned on the program, Yvonne Heath. She's a nurse with a mission to help bring death out of the darkness and into our conversations and to create a culture of acceptance with less fear. Her book is called Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live fully now. Her website is very simple, loveyourlifetodeath.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. Yvonne, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate being invited back.
Had really so much positive comment with the first program that you were on for. And I want to, in the website, you've got some great information there. Let's go back and take a few seconds at the beginning to establish how you got involved with this mission, this passion that you have in your life. And to listen to our first interview, you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and go to iTunes or YouTube, and you can watch and listen to that interview. Nearly 30 years in nursing, and this was something that sort of evolved over that period of time in watching people suffer. Talk about that evolution and how you got to the point where this really has become the main focus of your life now in trying to prepare people for this.
Well, Rick, it's interesting because sometimes I think you're not even really sure what it is that is gnawing at you. And in my career, I worked in several different hospitals in the United States and in Canada. And I saw people who died young and old or had a dying process or suddenly. And I realized there was just something that just wasn't sitting well with me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And in the last decade of my nursing career, I was in chemotherapy and palliative care and hospice, which I had been in the past as well. And I just sort of stepped back and started to observe and say, we don't really talk about what is going on here when people are dying, and we're always very, we fight the good fight, and I'm all for that if a cure is to be had. But sometimes it seemed like we were fighting death against all odds, and it was just it was gnawing at me, and suddenly I realized that's what it was. And one thing that did happen to me in my life was that, of course, we all plan to. It would be wonderful if our parents died and then we died and then our children, like all in the order that we would
exactly,
love it
yes.
to happen. Yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful? But, I had a son we have a son, and he sort of went down a very dangerous road of drug addiction. And I realized, I can't control all of these things. And I realized that I was ill prepared to meet with anything other than, me going first. And so I realized I needed to change my own way of dealing with all of this.
And you've seen really, and I'll use the word devastation that this can cause in families. And we talked about it on the first program. You talk about it in your book, Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live fully now. Where if the talk is not had, if the proper preparations are not put into place, it can really be divisive and bitter, and that can break up families literally for the rest of their lives.
I can't even count how many people I've talked to. I've heard the stories of fractured families beyond repair, and because they feel like things should have been handled differently, or things that they ended up, the money or items that they wish they were going to get and they didn't get, and there's all of these legal battles, and how sad that is, because in my opinion and what I've seen and in talking to people, if we talked about planned and prepared for grief, death, and dying and all of these issues long before we were facing them, we could avoid all that suffering.
Well, and it's interesting because you point out the best time is when you're young and healthy. It's not when you feel the end is near and maybe at that point your decision making isn't quite as sharp as it should be. Life situations change. So you say really you need to start at an early age.
Well, this is a really important point because we would all love to live in the bubble that we all die of old age.
Yes.
And we don't. And, again, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all just sort of at a certain age, but that isn't the reality. And when we think about that, when people die at a young age, we feel, they didn't live a full life and this is awful. And it's that much more traumatic for everyone to cope with. Because if someone is 20 as opposed to 95, you feel like, they shouldn't have died. They're so young, but it happens. And yet, because they're young, no one's thought about it. No one prepared. So that just compounds the devastation. What I try to tell people is grieving is enough. So imagine the two scenarios where someone in their 20s died and we just automatically, everyone had an end of life plan. We decided organ donation. We decided cremation or funeral long before any of that we were facing it. So then suddenly someone who was 25 was in a car accident. That family could pick up the broken pieces and give themselves time to grieve. Whereas if there's all the legal stuff and, oh my goodness, would he have been an organ donor? I don't know. We didn't talk about it. It just compounds the suffering.
Yvonne Heath is our guest on This Week in America. The name of the book is Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live fully now. Her website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. The book's available in paperback, digital. At the website, a lot of great information, excellent resources. You can sign up for the newsletters and much more by going to the website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. As baby boomers, there's a real opportunity, isn't there? Not only to take care of themselves, but many are dealing with aging parents, and maybe now is the time to finally have that talk.
Well, for the baby boomers, I say, and actually I'm going to speak to a group of them tonight, they have a very huge opportunity because baby boomers are, as we know, they're a huge part of our population, and they are retirees and they have children and grandchildren, and yes, they also have aging parents, and perhaps they're dealing with their own health issues. So I would just absolutely love to empower our baby boomers to say, I'm doing well. I've just retired. I'm not facing end of life that I'm aware of, but I'm going to empower myself and my family and help to create a culture of change with my children so that they will do that with their children and with my parents. And of course, with a lot of the older generations, I say it's a lot of damage control because we're already scared to death of death and nobody wants to talk about it. And to be honest, I just tell people, it's each of our responsibility to plan our life right to the end of our life. Why should we be leaving that for somebody else? It's just, it's just such an enormous burden to have to try to figure out what somebody would have wanted or to, again, fight with siblings or something. Let's just each take responsibility for our own lives. And again, the baby boomers, they're sort of right in the middle where, they can help sort of navigate with their parents through this, do their own end-of-life plans so their children are aware, and perhaps help to create that culture of change that I want so desperately for our society.
Well, I keep talking about the talk and information on the talk, as well as an end-of-life questionnaire, a lot of great resources at the website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. The talk is a lot more involved than just a word. Talk about what exactly we need to discuss in the talk. You decide, okay, I'm going to have the talk, and then you're thinking, about what? Now what do I do? How do I bring this up? How do you go about it? What decisions should you be talking about?
Well, the first thing that I tell people, it's like any conversation. The talk is about when your kids are going to reach puberty, or you have to have the sex talk or whatever. It's so awkward at first. And so the more you've prepared personally, the better off. So with the talk about end of life, I urge people, and I've done it in my own life, and this is why I know I am walking my talk. I said, okay, well, let me make my decisions about myself personally so that, when you approach other people or you're talking to people about what they should do, it's really the first thing you need to do is figure out your values. What is most important to you? What is important to you in your life? What would be important to you at end of life? I have a friend who said, when I die, I want certain people as my pallbearers carrying me out, and I've already named them, and that's really important to me. I thought, oh, that would never even occur to me because I just want to be cremated and spread all over the forest. So and so I think that it's really to dig in and have a little sort of soul searching and see what's important to you. And it really is something that if you do that yourself, it really makes you sort of check in and say, wow, I will not live forever. And, as we talked about in the last one, facing your own mortality. I mean, it's not pleasant. I don't want to die, but I think that it is the greatest gift we can give to each other. One of the greatest gifts is to plan all of this so that your family doesn't have to, and also to empower them to move through grief after you're gone. And I've asked my family to do the same. So we've done that for each other. So the very first step is planning yourself. And that way, because people say, oh, it's so awkward, I don't know what to say to people. Well, have the talk with yourself first. And in the book, I also say, and then talk to the people that it will be easier with. I have some relatives that they're like, oh yeah, I have a death box and I don't care. And, when I kick off, here's all the information. So of course that was easy. And we had some banter and it was fun and I got ideas. Now I also have those relatives and friends, they're scared to death of death, and people who say, I don't want to talk about that. Well, you know what? I say, but you know what? It's really important for all of us. And I get it, but it's, if I could say a little self-love or a tough love, it's a little selfish because you're just leaving that for someone else to do. I think we all need to take responsibility. So start with yourself first, and that's very empowering.
Yvonne Heath is our guest, author of the book Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live life fully now. Let's talk, in the website, by the way, loveyourlifetodeath.com. There's a period that you go through. We talk about, okay, I'm doing fine now, and then I'm dead and I need to plan for that. There's that stage in there where you've got medical decisions that need to be made. People weigh quantity of life versus quality of life, and we all have different opinions on, I'll do anything to buy an extra couple of months, and others will say, if I'm going to be in that bad of shape, I would rather end it now. I'm more concerned about the quality. There are decisions you mentioned before with the organ donations, that type of thing. That's really an important part of the talk as well, isn't it? What happens in that interim period there?
Yeah, it is such a huge part, or hugely important part, because there again is what happens that it destroys families. Mother ends up having a stroke and she's 85 and somebody said, no, she did not ever want to be on life support. And the other family says, absolutely, she needs to be on life support. And here at this time where you should be supporting each other, there's this huge emotional battle. And how devastating for everybody. So mom and the family, have the talk all together. Mom, in these situations, and of course it's better to do when you're young and healthy, so you don't feel like someone is, it's a death sentence, but you say, or before the stroke, have those conversations before. And you say, we want to know what would mean more to you, and what would be enough quality of life. And do you want, if you were going to be paralyzed from the waist or neck down, would that be okay for you? Have those conversations long before and really understand what that person values. Everybody is different. And, I don't want to try to figure out what would be most important to one of my relatives. I want them to tell me. So I've asked. And like I said in 2016, I want every one of my relatives, I want everything to be, every T crossed, every I dotted. And I'm doing the same with, details that are important to me as well. And think about the things that would devastate your family. I mean, if you have the family ring and there's 3 people that are going to want it, sit together, have a big brawl and say, okay, who gets the ring? I can't give it to all 3 of you. Let's figure this stuff out now, And so that family can, you can have banter, you can have arguments and tears and laughter, have it all. And like I said, when I planned, my mom and I went and we did her end of life plan. And I said, did we just have a really fun day planning your end of life? And because we were laughing and bantering, because it wasn't an imminent situation. So we sorted out so many little details. And it's those little details that often destroy families. I heard people fighting about a blender. I used to cook with mom. I want the blender. I mean, please, like that's
And that
go get
can
another
be,
blender. But
well, yeah, what's so sad is that can be avoided. And things that you say you can't sometimes take back, you can't erase, you can't rewind, those are out there and people remember those for years. A few minutes left in the program. With us, Yvonne Heath, once again. And we'll have her back in the program because it's a really important topic. The book is called Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live fully now. The website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. So many great examples in the book that we can relate to. And one that you talk about brings up a lot of the issues that we've addressed in the program. And that is Erica, who's a high school friend of yours and the situation she went through with her dad. Talk a little bit about that, because at the end there was unresolved grief, and it took a conversation, several conversations with her before she was really able maybe to move on from that. But for so many of us, we deal with this unresolved grief, which can stay with us for years.
And we have no idea how many people are carrying around guilt and grief that, I mean, my goodness, I always try to say to people, if you didn't do your best at the time in a situation, forgive yourself, because there's absolutely nothing you can do to change that. And yes, my very good friend, she's so lovely. And her dad was actually the first person that I ever knew that had cancer. And, how sad that, well, when we were in high school, I knew two people, and it was this, cancer, what's cancer? And now here are these children, cancer, they know relatives and their parents and their aunts and people they love and children. It seems that cancer is like an epidemic, which means that we should be even more prepared for, end of life and all of this, because we're facing it more. So yes, my friend, her dad had died in high school, and she felt guilty all these years because she didn't really understand, that he was so close to end of life, and they hadn't really talked about it, and there was fear, and we didn't know how to have those conversations, and in the book, Rick, you can't make me cry on the show, because this always makes me cry, this story, because she said that, her dad, he knew that he was close to end of life, and he took his family to Florida, and his wife was saying, we can't go to Florida, we can't afford it. And he said, we're going to Florida. And she said, there he was sitting on this bench, all skin and bones, and watching her and her brother have the time of their lives. And she felt so guilty that she didn't realize how sick he was, because he died very shortly after that. But I said to her, and I stepped back and I reframed it, and I said, do you not realize the wonderful gift you gave him? Because he didn't want everybody else surrounding him and weeping. He wanted that bench and watch his children have the best time of their lives, that gift that he was still able to give them, even in his dying process. And I said, what brings you more joy than watching your children have fun? I said, you gave him that gift. And she hadn't seen it that way for all of those years. And she's gone through, many losses, and just deserves to be surrounded by love and not feel guilty at all. She was an amazing person, and she still is. So, and who do you talk to about those things, right? If you have unresolved grief, or another lady, Karen, who said her mother died when she was 5, and she had all of this unresolved grief, and we need to be able to normalize talking about these things and reaching out to people, and it being okay to say, what, I'm not doing okay with this, and be better prepared and open, and being okay with talking about it, and being okay with being messy, so you cry. People think I was good at this stuff. It's hilarious. I was usually a hot mess. I'd go in and cry and tell people to tell me their stories. I have black mascara running down my face. There's nothing magical. I spoke to somebody today, actually, who's in his dying process, and he said, just lead with your heart and show up for people, and we can empower us. Most people are compassionate. We just don't know what to do, and we just need to create a culture where we can normalize these conversations and help each other through this.
Well, you're doing that. You're doing that with the book, and the help that you gave Erica and helping her to sort everything out is what you're doing for literally thousands of people worldwide. The book is called Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live fully now. Yvonne Heath has been our guest on the program. LoveYourLifeToDeath.com is the name of her website. You can link on directly by going to thisweekinamerica.us. Also, by going to our website, you can listen to the first program that we did listen and or watch the first program we did with Yvonne. The website is just so much great information there. I encourage everyone to check it out. The website, once again, is LoveYourLifeToDeath.com. Yvonne, it's always a meaningful program having you with us. Thank you so much for sharing all those stories, and we look forward to having you back in the program.
Rick, thank you so much for bringing this message to so many people. I'm really grateful, and I look forward to chatting again.
And once again, Yvonne Heath, our guest. The website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. You can log on directly to Yvonne's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us.